Okay, I'd like to introduce Rachel Gwin. Rachel is the restoration coordinator with the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance. So sorry about that. She has worked for CBA for almost 9 years and oversees the design, permitting, planning, and installation of CBA's Living Shoreline projects. And today, Rachel will be discussing CBA's Grasses and Classes program as a source of plants for restoration projects.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? I'm relatively soft-spoken, so I'll make sure I'm speaking loud enough with the microphone. But thank you, guys. My name is Rachel. I know a lot of familiar faces, so I think most people know us and know about what we do. But I'm going to talk a little bit about CBA, who we are, kind of brief overview of our projects, but mainly looking at how we source our grasses from our Grasses and Classes elementary environmental education program. Oops. Oh, it's not going on there. Okay. So this is a bit what I'm going through. So going over the just an overview of CBA and then our Grasses and Classes program, how we source plants, and then also going to kind of touch base on some future projects and how we're kind of branching out on expanding our stock of plants. So a little bit about CBA. We're an entirely grant and donor funded nonprofit organization that promotes swimmable, fishable, local waterways. And we do this through our education, restoration, monitoring, and research programs. So today we talked about the education and restoration portion. A little bit about our other program areas, just because I think they're worth mentioning. With our monitoring, we do water quality monitoring all throughout the Choctawhatchee Bay, the coastal dune lakes over in Walton County, all the way up the river to Geneva, Alabama. There's just over 100 stations a month we do with our organization and then with citizen scientists volunteers. We also monitor seagrass throughout the bay, and then we monitor our constructed oyster reef projects with our Living Shorelines. And with our education program, I'll be talking a lot about our Grasses and Classes. Obviously, it's our elementary education, but we also have a Dunes and Schools middle school education, where we do dune ecosystems and sea oats, and then we've just started a high school program working with oysters called Spat On. So they're helping with reef building and things like that. And for those of you who don't know, juvenile oysters are oyster spat, so that's our little play on words. And then restoration, we do some invasive plant removal, but it's mainly the oyster reefs and living shorelines, grass plantings, that kind of thing. And we're doing some dune lake research, but also partnering with any organizations that are coming in wanting to do research within the watershed. We'll help out. We've done different things with seagrass or sturgeon or things like that. But getting into Grasses and Classes, it really fulfills a lot of things in our education and restoration programs. On the education side, it gets in, we like to try and capture the hearts and minds of students and kids early to generate the next generation of water stewards. And so they all these hands-on experiences that I'll go through. And then restoration, it's a really good source of plants and actually helps with some on-the-ground restoration. Over the years, with the programs we've been implementing, we've reached over 14,000 students. And we do 3rd and 5th grade at the elementary schools. And we've produced over 17,000 native plants throughout the program and had most of those planted at the sites. And we also partner with a AmeriCorps team that really helps us get in the schools and reach as many people as we do. And throughout the years with AmeriCorps and our part-time education staff, we've had 68 individuals throughout the years with that. And here's just a bit of the breakdown of the numbers over the years to kind of show the students, the schools, and the classrooms, how kind of it's fluctuated. It's really grown, but in the last couple of years, we've really hit our plateau where we found that limitations with funding and staff time kind of keeps us around this amount of schools. It definitely keeps us busy, but it's a good amount of plants and things. But an overview of the program, so we are in these schools. This year, I believe, we're at, I'm not in the schools as much. I'm on the restoration field side, but we're in 19 schools this year. And it's third and fifth graders throughout different elementary schools. And we go in the first lesson, they actually pot Spartina alterniflora grasses and set up their salt marsh nurseries, learn about checking the salinity with refractometers and things like that. And then we come in every month and they get hands-on lessons, and they're all aligned to the state standards for their grades. And we'll do different things with watershed, talking about why these grasses are such an important buffer for filtering out excess pollutants and nutrients and things. We actually bring in touch tanks towards the end of the year where they can see critters that we've caught out in the bay the morning of or the night before. So it's a lot of fun for the kids. It gets them really involved. And at the end of the year, the most important part is they actually get out to one of our restoration sites and they plant these grasses in the field while exploring the area and all these other things. So it really gets them out and hands-on. And for all the grasses they're growing, they're also planting a lot in the field. So it helps us with these big restoration events. And throughout the year, they have a folder that they get with worksheets and things to kind of track their progress. And we do take a pre and post test. And this last year, they showed 90% of students showed improvement. So we're getting really good results, which is great for the kids. And these are some pictures just from our field trips. And we'll take them out to different sites. We've done core logs at some of the sites, or some of the sites have existing reefs, or we're doing future reefs. So there's different levels of wave energies. And we've actually been planting the grasses in burlap bags, part of it for the ease of working with the kids in different areas and transporting it. And part of it, it kind of gives the roots a little bit of extra time to get secure and kind of a little extra protection from the waves. So we'll plant 3 plants per bag, kind of spaced apart, and we'll put a little bit of locally sourced dredge sand, and it just kind of supports the roots. The bags break down pretty quick, usually about 3 months, but it gives them a little bit of a head start. And then with kids, it kind of helps them, instead of having a whole field of kids trying to plant one area at once, they can make their bags and then team carry them over to the site where they're setting them down. And our program partners, we have a lot. Definitely this program wouldn't have been able to be run without the partners. And this program especially, we had all these partnerships kind of set up as loose partnerships. But with this PERT organization, PERT group, we could get together and have more formal partnerships and kind of have opportunities to leverage more funding in the future. Also reach out to different knowledge bases throughout a larger geographic region. But I'll talk more about AmeriCorps on the next slide, but they're a big part of why we can do as much as we do with this program. We also had great startup funding and have worked a lot with Melody and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. I also had funding consistently from the Northwest Florida Water Management District. And I've also partnered with the schools to be in the schools, and they have buy-in on their end. And then we've worked with the extension agents in Okaloosa and Walton County and Florida Sea Grant, and also had consistent funding that helped us start up from the the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation 5-star grant, and then from Boeing as well. But like I mentioned, AmeriCorps is really the reason why we were able to get in as many schools as we can. We partner with AmeriCorps, and they're, depending on the year, we've had anywhere from 5 up to about 13 members, and they commit to a year of service to work with us. And they're a national organization. I think most people are familiar with AmeriCorps, but if not, they're a national service organization. Our chapter works just with us, and they get a living stipend monthly, and they also get scholarship money at the end of their program that can go towards current classes they're going to, future school they want to go through, or for student loans that they've had. So that's really helpful. But they're really the reason why we were able to get into all these schools each month. So there's definitely a lot of pros and cons with the project. The pros for us, we really like the education portion. It ties largely into our education and restoration. So with this having the state standard curriculum that we use, it's really good with that. Like I mentioned earlier, we really like to get to the kids young, so that's why we work with elementary school, just trying to kind of capture them young and get them excited and involved early on. Facilitates the community buy-in for living shorelines, so these are all these other partners that maybe wouldn't have been concerned before with living shorelines or this kind of field work and getting out there and doing that. And it's a great source of plants. It would take our staff more to keep up with the amount of plants that we're getting throughout this program. And cons, since you are working with students, especially the elementary school students, some schools are better than others with their plant maintenance and weeding and things like that. So you'll have some schools that have healthier grasses at the end, so you do have some variety in the plant, the amount of plants you get in the health of the plants. And then you're limited by the school participation, whether that's with the financial buy-in or just the ones that are interested or even just have the time to participate in the program. And then with us, we are only working with the Spartina alterniflora, so you have the limited plant species. But there are different ways to tailor this program. I mean, I'm just talking about how we do our program, but there's definitely different ways to do it. So people could work with older students and maybe focus on just plant production if you're really looking for more of a plant source. And we have it to where we're in the schools monthly, and that takes a lot more staff. And that's really for the education, but if you really were looking more for just the plant production, you could just have, and you have less staff, you could just go in the beginning, plant the grasses, do some education, and have the field trips at the end. You don't need to do the monthly. So there's definitely a lot of different things to play around with there. And we, at the end of the year, the students don't plant all of the grasses. We'll keep some to the side and split and kind of help to pot and use those in the next year. But when we do need to get additional plants, we've got some from DEP, and we also order from Aquatic Plants of Florida. And like I mentioned, there's definitely different program models that can be tailored. And for the future, we just started working with the Growth House at Silver Sands, and they're helping us do some dune plants. They're doing sea oats and a couple of different types of dune vegetation. And we also worked with the Okaloosa Mountain Extension agents and master gardeners on some stock plants of starting new varieties, and also with Walton County Art Horizons program. But we're looking at branching out and trying different programs. That's everything. Does anyone have any questions?
Chris? Some of my last topic, I just wanted to walk through the card program.
I didn't look at them closely, but it's, I believe it's a citation for retardation.
Okay.
It's usually the original.
That's interesting. Yeah, I just hadn't heard of it.
Yeah, and that's, I worked with Alice on the end of the presentation because she was working with some of those other partners as we more in the field of restoration. So I haven't worked as much in the schools.
Thanks.
Did you just say quick questions? Are we having questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, actually, thank you, Rachel. I just wanted to point out that it takes a village to do all this stuff, and I think our speakers have been showing that this morning. And we have now, through efforts of all of you in here as partners, a person in every bay, an entity in every bay. So Pensacola, Perdido, Choctawhatchee, and St. Andrew Bay, RNA, and Appalachia Bay. So we've got this entity in every bay now. And I just wanted to recognize that a couple of people have mentioned Melody's money, and I want to, I just want to make sure that everybody knows is that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Coastal Program funding, and it's because you all were ready to accept money that we could move these kinds of projects forward. So there were, it takes a village, and I wanted to start off by recognizing the Project Green Shores project that started before my time. Eric Schneider was involved in that, and certainly Daryl and Eric Harder. The early years, so we're standing on a lot of shoulders. It takes a village. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody gets recognized. If I forget anybody, then I know Rick O'Connell and Shelley Alexander, and starting off Christopher Lindy. Chris was one of my early go-to people, Mike Gwin was my predecessor, who worked with Eric, I think, and Project Green Shores, and Roz. My gosh, she taught the second Master Naturalist Coastal coastal restoration module. Is Ross still here? Yes. Okay, so Ross and Rick taught, and Christopher Lindsay taught the first one. Farrah has been working on this marine contractor workshop. You know, I know this isn't the Oscars, but I just want to that everybody Christina Cantrell is taking over for Patrice Couch, who did us proud over the years for St. Andrew Bay RNA, and anyway, and Kent is, and his team is doing great things in South Florida. So you know, it takes a village, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody gets some attention here, gets some love, because we couldn't make Living Shorelines a household term without the help of everyone here, and it's going to be great. You know, PERT is building on a lot of that work too. So thank you. Thank you, Rachel. I'm sorry that I shouldn't get your time.
I have a couple quick comments. We have a grass class program in our office as well, and we do it similar but completely different. We are in high schools, 5 different high schools, and we try not to give them Choctawhatchee in the forest because of 2 reasons. It's harder to grow, and when we try to plant with them, there's never a time when we want to plant Choctawhatchee. So it's really cool to see how different the grasses class program can be. And every year we go to the Estuary Fun Festival, Choctawhatchee Family Fun Festival, and I'm always shocked at how many kids know about what I have at my booth because of CBA's grasses class. Young kids, really young kids, younger than we ever work with, they know their stuff because of the time they spent in the classroom.
It's one of the weirdest things to see a bunch of 3rd grade kids all yell hard hang out and ask them what they're going to do.
Most Spirados ultimate florist?
Yes. Not accepted that yet.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
Good.
Do you collect seeds for Walker? I was just curious about it.
We don't. I think, I have to ask Allison when she gets back. I think the very beginning program, before any of it was really set up, when they were kind of just trying to start out, it was her predecessor and who they were working with. I think they were actually from seed, but it's really slow, and that they a lot of times aren't producing a lot of viable seeds. And since they do grow so well with runners, we're getting, when we do buy stuff from Aquatic Plants of Florida, we'll get the 2-inch plants and grow them out in 4-inch pots. And the root balls are so dense that we can really split off well from that.
Question is, what are the other plants that you're growing?
Juncus, are kind of baby. He's giving them a little sea pear slang, Susubian, saltmarsh bastard. I think a backers pusher too, just a couple of different things that we have.
I have a question for both of y'all, actually. What percentage, if any, of your product, that whether it's the grasses or the recyclers, goes towards private homeowners that want to put in a leash line? Does any of it go towards that, or and if so, what portion?
Yes, so we do work with private homeowners. And in the past, we had enough grant funding to actually fund the programs. Now the grant funding has been a bit more limited. We have a lot of interest, so we'll have buy-in where they'll kind of reimburse us for the cost of it, but we will buy. We have a recycle or shell recycling program, so when we price out that, we're pricing just like the cost of our time and diesel to take the truck to get it. But I don't really know a percentage off the top of my head, but we've been working with a lot of homeowners in the past couple of years. I think 1 year alone, we just did 10 homeowner living shoreline projects with reefs and grasses. So we do work with a good mix of the private homeowners and public park sites.
Yeah, it'd be hard to give you an exact percentage without looking at it, but everywhere we put materials is tied to an upland property, so whether it's privately owned, publicly owned. We right now we're doing most of our work, or almost all of our work in the aquatic preserve, so that we're happy to work with private landowners in the preserve if they, have a buy-in and are looking to do the types of projects that we support.
Most of our grants and deposits, most of our projects have been with private owners. We started, we've got some county parks that we've been restoring, but most of our projects have been private owners. And what we ask is that they just come here with us because we for the most part either prices that they run the oyster shell. We don't have an oyster shell that I'm serving yet in Basin. Scott Jackson and I talked about it, and I was going to talk to Zach about it. And it's something we'd like to start. We just currently don't have an area to put the shell once we plant it. We have a lot of restaurants wanting us to come and get it, but not an area to put it yet. So we asked them to not share pay for the shell that we have to order.
So long ago, it was a real sell job to be able to convince somebody not to put in a seawall. But now the tide has turned some. Do you do any of you find that you have more demand than you have capacity? More people coming to you saying, hey, I want some of those plants on my shoreline, so I'm not seawall.
Yeah, I think you guys definitely, you go back and forth between piling up projects and, looking for people. But yeah, there's always demand.
So on that note, then, when there is enough demand, I'd like to propose an approach where certainly there's the cost share approach, but there could also be a way to leverage waterfront properties development and say, okay, if you're willing to give create a 30-foot or 50-foot or 75-foot conservation easement along your shoreline where you won't mow it and things like that to create a buffer zone and not just like artificial, not turf grass like St. Ising grass, but somewhere where there's actual space for the marsh to migrate upward with sea level rise, so kind of a resiliency buffer. Then I think that's something that you can use as a bargaining chip and say, well, we've got a long waiting list. The people at the top of the list are willing to give us a 75-foot conservation easement. Once we get through those, and the people who are willing to give us a 50-foot conservation easement will come. So people will be more inclined to say, hey, you know what, I can't build anything that close to the water anyways, and we really don't do anything there. We've got a patio, work, do stuff close to the house. Yeah, sure, let's cost more than that, so that should be allowed. And get them to essentially create a coastal buffer. So I don't know. There's certainly some work that has to go into creating something like that, testing out flows, but just want to throw that idea out.
I think that's part of the conversation we're having with PERT is how far, how we push that deal, and we recognize other areas that have rules about letting you can't and letting sharks. So that's an area that we could explore. And I'll say real quick about the buffer. I would have a lot less to do if there was an automatic just buffer along the shoreline, and a lot of the advice I gave is stop mowing down the shoreline, whether we do something or not. Leave it alone.
Yeah, I mean, along those lines, I know in some other, I know this Sarasota estuary program are coming up with a living shoreline manual, specifically addressing, sort of the how-to, the permitting rules, what they would like to see from an estuary protection standpoint. So, to me, that's something that I know I could does some of that work too, but something that's really specifically geared towards homeowners and facilitating their, thinking about that as would be a great product for this group.
The approach there is like one step from people trying to people, not just homeowners.
Oh, absolutely. Well, certainly the material has to be there too.
Janet, funny you should ask. I've been on the committee, but they're also graciously on, so I can get on. It's a joke. And and it is a Gulf-wide publication, and it's kind of a bibliography for all the resources for living shorelines, state tailored for each state. And
from that, we're going to come up with a two-pager, a homeowner, contractor, professional, realtor guide, and the information's in the back, and I was going to talk a little bit about it at the end of the meeting, but we need everybody's comments on it, so just feel free to ask me about it. Just wanted to let you know it was in the works.
Yeah, I was going to say that we had a brochure that we put together, several of us, about targeting this specific area. One key part of it was, going back to Farrah's comment, where they can get the plants. Because when I'm talking to them, I'm trying not to send them to those guys. A lot of these folks live on waterfront property, and nothing against those guys, but they got the money to buy these things. But the problem within the brochure is that the turnover in some of these places is relatively high, so you guys stay on top of it. It's an interesting little quagmire, but that there are people who are interested in getting into the business. I'm talking nurseries now of selling these plants, but there's not enough business. Now we're starting to get the business, so I think we're right there at that point where this may actually start turning into some of the nurseries can take on some of this stuff.
That's a great point. Is there any other questions?